Premier League fans back where they are. So anyway.
Yeah,
Every time I talk to this guy, we just go on because I love talking football with him. It's Vito Stellino, VitoStellino.com. You'll remember him from the sporting news. You'll remember him Florida Times Union covering the Jaguars when you were, say, the great Jaguars-Titans rivalry of the late 90s, and maybe you wanted to go check out the opposition position online or something. You get the picture there. Anyway, Vito, just coming back to you, we were talking, it's draft day. Do you have a sleeper player, somebody that you think is a diamond in the rough in this year's draft?
Yeah, I hate to go there because it's just so difficult. I mean, to me, they're all diamonds in the rough. Half the first rounders, don't make it. I almost find amusing the after draft, grades. Well, you're not going to know the grades till another 3 years. So it.
Just like recruiting. I always say this. I mean, the Tennessee Volunteers were 4-8 last year, Vito Stellino. And, 2014, 4 years ago, they had what Rivals said was the 5th best recruiting class in the country. Obviously, it wasn't. So you don't know. I mean, there were people that had Ryan Leaf ahead of Peyton Manning on their draft boards, if you can believe it, from back when and such. Vito Stellino, I did, we were talking a little bit about the schedules and, the NFL and such. Kickoffs. Do you think that they're going to be a thing of the past? I did a commentary where I talked about this. I think it would be a great loss for the game if we did away with the kickoffs, but do you think that they are about to be eliminated?
I'd be surprised, but, they have to be concerned about the injury factor. People now realizing how serious concussions are, which for years they either didn't realize it or were in denial. You think of Ryan Shazier on the field, only his arms moving, and how scary that was. So, and they're saying it's the most dangerous play in football. So, I don't know. It would be a pretty radical move. It's kind of funny, almost taking the foot out of football, except for punts. But I think it's something they're definitely considering. I think it kind of depends. Next 2 or 3 years, they had an uptick in injuries on kickoffs. So if that continues, then it's more likely. If it slacks off, it's less likely. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't think you can rule it out because every time I see them bring a stretcher out and they strap a guy in, I'm thinking, mothers are out there watching. Do I want my son to play this game? That type of thing. So it's and then former players that commit suicide or bad dementia, that type. I mean, it's a worrisome problem.
Well, can I ask you this question? Why do you think? Is it because the game is so much harder hitting now? I mean, you've been around it for a long time. There were players, Sammy Baugh, was very lucid when he had a memorable meeting at the age of 91 with Peyton Manning for Sports Illustrated. I was friends with Bob Seifers, who was a great local player who played in the NFL way back in the 40s and such. But, it was his wife who had Alzheimer's and Parkinson, not him when he was 80 years old. He was still, very healthy, certainly, mentally and such, had all his faculties at that. And although, it's not like I'm sure no NFL players ever got Alzheimer's. I mean, yeah, it happens a lot to everybody, right? It does seem that there's more of this suicide by Junior Seau, shooting himself in the heart so they could study your head. All these horrible stories we're hearing do seem to have been coming out in recent years. Did we miss something back in the 70s and 60s or something? Or why has this happened where it seems like there's so many ex-players that have all these problems?
Yeah, it could be that they were having it before and just didn't get that much publicity, you know, and it could be that players didn't want to go public back in the day because there was almost like a stigma to have dementia, you know. Now that people realize it, I think their families are more willing to go public. And also, you got a lot more players these days than you had. You know, we only had 12 teams.
Okay, yeah.
Like 30-man rosters. There weren't as many players. And I just don't think it was the hard-hitting game in those days as it is now.
See, I could see that.
And so I think you add all those factors together, and you just have more, you know, either have more injuries or people don't notice anymore. But I think the fact that there are many more players, the game is faster, the hits are harder, the collisions are, you know, like being in an auto accident.
Yeah.
You know, I think it just all adds up, you know, so.
No, I've seen an automobile accident occur right in front of me, and I've been on NFL fields where they'll have like a goal line stand, and it's frightening how similar it is. I mean, in terms of the collision impact,
you know, the game is definitely dangerous, you know, and, you know, so it's, you know, it's, you know, yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, like that player, San Francisco, but he retired after 1 year, right? I mean, granted, that's pretty rare, but, you know, it still happens, and so we just have to.
I do remember a former Auburn Tiger, Greg Carr, who quit after 4 years in the NFL. And I mean, he could have played a few more years. He was a productive linebacker, but he wanted to be more a veterinarian. And, you know, so he left the NFL. He had his money. Now it's time to go on with his life's work, you know. And, yeah, he played for Chuck Noll, too. So that makes it appropriate with that. But, yeah, you know, and for that matter, Barry Foster, the same way. You know, relatively short career. He's like, I got $1 million in a bank here. I'd like to, you know, do I need to make more money and risk the injuries that we're talking about or something that I just might not have my heart in anymore and all that. I mean, he was supposed to be the Carolina Panthers feature back their first year. Never played a game for him, actually. You know, just was like, don't have it anymore after a relatively short career and such. So there are some, in a previous generation, there are some stories along that line and such. Vito Stellino, I'll just ask this. We got 4 quarterbacks, I think, that people are wondering, who will the Cleveland Browns take? So let me ask you, who, in your opinion, of those 4, who do you think is the best of the draft? Or would it be a Lamar Jackson sneaking in from the outside?
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a Lamar Jackson, but, you know, the others, the opinions are all over the lot, and it's just a guessing. It's hard not to judge position players, much less quarterbacks. You just don't know how they're going to make the adjustment. And so, again, yeah, you know, a lot of people think it's Darnold, but the guy I like the past is Rosen, just because he's so outspoken. But he's not outspoken in an inflammatory way. The stuff he says makes sense, you know. But I think he'd be an interesting guy to. He'll be an interesting guy to follow. You know, once he joins the NFL.
And you know what? I think that we need more personality in the NFL because there is a lot of, and you know, the NFL, they like conformity. But that can be, you know, Bill Belichick has lived in the NFL and you know it. But you know what? Bill Belichick is pretty darn boring. And by the way, I want to ask you this. I remember when the great old coaches, Shula, Noel, Landry, people saying the game has passed them by. If you're not playing Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl, is there a legitimate the game has passed Belichick by statement that could be made?
Well, I don't know if it's passed him by, but what I think is he's suffering from hubris. Too much success, not answerable to anyone, and eventually you think you're bulletproof and you can do anything you want because for years he's had Tom Brady, and Brady's the bigger racer, erasing all his mistakes. Well, this time Brady couldn't erase this mistake, and so it's like Belichick with George Halas. I mean, it's like he owns the team. Kraft lets him do whatever he wants. I'm not so sure that he wouldn't have traded Tom Brady and gone with Garoppolo if it looks like anyway that Kraft stepped in and said, "Hey, look, we're not."
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady's going to retire a Patriot. It's probably the only personnel decision that Bob Kraft has ever stepped in and made a decision on. So yeah, that's what I think the problem is. I mean, I don't think Belichick is as great a coach as people have been saying he is. He's just been fortunate to have Tom Brady, and when you have Brady, in the short passing game, I mean, they really throw long passes, but
Sure.
And also
Bill Walsh. Yeah.
but for two plays, three plays,
The Butler interception.
Being on the 1 yard line by Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
and then Atlanta being on the 20, and passing on second, third down, and getting knocked out of field goal range, rather than just running three plays to kick a field goal. Those three plays saved him from two Super Bowl losses. He loses those two games instead of 5-3. He's 3-4. He's 3-5 in Super Bowls. What would his reputation be like then?
Interesting, yeah.
Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah, he wouldn't have the most Super Bowls. There would still be Noel, and so that would be that would be quite. What if Vinatieri's field goal attempts go wide or something? It's an interesting idea right there. I will say, and I have always said this. I remember when Belichick was with the Cleveland Browns. I have never seen a more unpopular coach than Bill Belichick with the Cleveland Browns, even when he was winning. And it was because they just absolutely hated his personality. And, it was such a horrible situation as the team left town and such. And, I mean, not even Rich Kotite with the New York Jets have I seen more vilified than Bill Belichick in Cleveland and such. He's Vito Stellino. He knows the NFL. He knows the history. He knows the draft. And, by the way, before I let you go, I'm sorry, I was about ready to do this. We talked a little bit about this on Twitter. You mentioned that the NFL wants more scoring, which I understand that. Don't get me wrong. Although I have always said that I think what fans want is not necessarily, 51-45 games, but rather close competitive games. And if they're 17-14, okay. If they're 10-3, or if they are 51-45, well played, close games and all this. We like quarterback sacks as well as touchdown passes. Why does the NFL have the mindset of offense?
Because they feel the fans want scoring. The fans want offense. That's what made the NFL. I mean, remember colleges back in General Bob Nealon days were punting on third down and that type of thing, and Woody Hayes, 3 yards to color dust, that type of thing. The NFL became a more exciting game, more wide open game, and that was the key to their popularity. So whenever the scoring goes below 41 points a game, they want 24-17, or if it goes to 41 points a game for an entire season, and then they start tweaking the rules. That's why they, went to the 5-yard bump rule and versus having the offensive lineman holes and all those kind of things. They want to keep the scoring up. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. There's been some great games, 7-3 and 9-7 and that type of thing. But what they want is more of a wide open game, more scoring. I mean, they're not asking 55-45, but they want at least 24-17. So that's their philosophy, and I don't see that changing at all. And so far, and now that people passing all the time, the scoring has tended to stay in that low 40s range. So that's now they have other problems, dealing with the lower ratings because people just don't watch TV the way they used to. More channels,
Sure.
all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
It does almost hard to believe that apparently some people used to watch football games because there wasn't anything else to watch. Like Monday Night Football.
Yeah, no, I get you. You had if you didn't like the movie that was on the other channel, yeah. Were you gonna? Sure, I get that. Yeah. What are you gonna do? Watch PBS? I mean, the ballet. What is that? We don't want that. I actually knew of somebody who had a ratings book who actually was watching football and would write in the old days of the diary that he was watching PBS because he thought PBS should be on the air and he was afraid that if he didn't lie, it would get taken off. I actually know somebody who did that back when and such. So can say what you will, but I'll say this. This is the recent tweet from our man Vito Stellino. Con is making such a big impact on Jacksonville that they may one day want to call it Conville. My friend Vito, we don't want that here in East Tennessee, in Upper East Tennessee. Andrew Jackson, where you live in Jacksonville, he used to be our representative 200 years ago in Congress. He was the first one. Tri-City Sports Now. We'll be back after this.